Hey Merfolk fans, I'm Joe. Thanks very much for joining me today. If you'd like to support my channel, please check the link above to my Patreon page. I'm back with round 2 of a modern friendly league, and let's have a look at the opening hand. Another mulligan. We mulliganed in game 1 of the last round. The opponent kept their 7. This is workable. We can keep this. I think that's going to go on top because we want to land another couple lands to cast Master of Waves. Mutavault is a combo with our 2 lords here, so it seems like a good card. Island could be Merfolk? Oh, but no, it looks like the opponent suspended Ancestral Vision, so some kind of control deck. So I'm going to open up Mutavault into AEther Vial here. It means that I'll be able to get in an attack with Mutavault next turn before the opponent can Field of Ruin. Okay, they're going with Opt. I should probably open up the chat, and there is a Field of Ruin right on time. They put a card on top of their library, and they play their Field of Ruin. So this Mutavault is not long for the world. Take our AEther Vial up. Another Master of Waves. A good creature, but we're not particularly close to getting him out onto the table. Let's get in for opponent down to 18. They have another Field of Ruin. So you can see right now the advantage of playing multiple islands. Actually, if I had 2 islands in hand when I started the game, the opponent might just be stuck on mana here. But as it went, they were able to use their Field of Ruin. They got a Plains, so they're turning on their colors, showing how incredible a card Field of Ruin can be. And it's really, really behooves us to be able to play around that card as effectively as possible. So as I mentioned in the deck tech, I am going to be changing out Minamo for another island, and I may actually just sub out my Cavern of Souls too. It might just be more important to have more basic islands, especially with Assassin's Trophy in the format soon. I don't know. Again, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Cavern of Souls in the format right now. I'm going to throw this Harbinger out here. The fact that the opponent is wasting a path to exile on Harbinger makes me feel really, really bad because it means they probably got all sorts of gas. Like, why are they using a path on Grizzly Bear? Well, possibly because they don't have another land. That's amazing. Actually, so if I only had islands, they would be stuck on island, field, field right now. So here's Snap Path, which, you know, is gas. Get another island out of our deck. We're going to leave that on 2. Bring in a Lord now, slam a Master of Waves, hope the opponent stays stuck on lands. Might as well play out that second AEther Vial. Since we... You know what? I'm not actually sure if playing out the second AEther Vial is optimal there. If the opponent has Detention Sphere, it might actually not really be relevant, having an extra AEther Vial or not. So here's Jace. Well, he can bounce the Master of Waves. That's kind of annoying. Opponent did top deck a land there, so we have to take up AEther Vial here because we've got 2 4-drops in our hand. The Phantasmal Image is cool because we can copy the Lord and deal with Jace right now. I don't know if I mentioned it already, but I really hate playing against blue-white control. Another Jace, sure. Now he could kill this Phantasmal Image, but he chooses to go with Brainstorming. Plays an island, it's not super threatening, and he suspended another Ancestral Vision. Interesting. Did I miss the first Ancestral Vision resolving? I guess I must have. But yeah, so the opponent's doing okay with cards now. We can attack Jace again and the opponent's face. Now, it's totally possible that I should have played out a Master of Waves there. I was playing around like a Wrath, a Terminus. But it would have given us a chance just to straight up win next turn. Although, of course, vialing in a Master of Waves gives us a chance to win next turn. But if the opponent has one path, it can deal with one Master of Waves, but it wouldn't be able to deal with the other Master of Waves. And the opponent was tapped out last turn, so maybe I should have cast one of my Master of Waves. We're going to bring this guy in now and see what the opponent does. Nothing yet, which is pretty good for us, I guess. Island Walk Lord. I think I just go to combat here. Swing with everything, or try to. The opponent might Cryptic me. We go for Field of Ruin there. If that was Oboro, we can bring it back to our hand. Again, if it was an island, the opponent wouldn't have been able to activate their Field of Ruin. So moving forward, that Minamo will not exist in my deck. Looks like he's got Xaxes for Cryptic here. Again, he could use one of the modes to kill one of my Island Walk Lords, but it seems like he's pretty comfortable with the cards in his hand now. Ancestral has 2 counters on it. All right. So, Teferi, that's always annoying. He's going to put the Master of Waves a third from the top. I'm going to try to respond by bringing in another Master of Waves, saving the tokens, and hopefully just creating the win for next turn. So yeah, we could easily swing through this. He doesn't have any mana for Cryptic up at this point. Of course, he has another path. Serum Visions. What does he do with those cards? Bottom top. Now, it's kind of a combo to Fairies minus and Path, because Master of Waves got put third from the top, and then he shuffled it away with Path. So but the opponent is tapped out here, and we had an Aether Vial ticked up to 3, so we could bring in the Reejerey. I don't even think we're concerned with Teferi here, because we've got lethal. So I'm going to tap Teferi because I don't like that guy, and I'm going to swing for 15. All right, so we managed to get there. The opponent resolved 2, or did he not resolve that one? At least resolved 1 Ancestral Vision. Played 2 Jaces, had a Cryptic Command, Teferi, but we were able to get there in game 1. So feeling pretty good about that. This is one of my least favorite matchups. Didn't take a ton of time in game 1, so that felt good. Let's go ahead and see how game 2 went. Okay, back for game 2. Opponent's going to be on the play, hoping for a good opening hand. That's pretty good. Kira can be good in the matchup. Trickster at instant speed seems good. Okay, Colonnade. I'm sorry, let's look really quick at the sideboarding plan. So as you can see, I took out 4 Spreading Seas, 4 Harbingers, 2 Phantasmal Images. They can be good. They can be bad. If Jace targets them, they just get destroyed. Destroyed by Detention Sphere. Chose to leave the Echoing Truths in the board. It can be good against Detention Sphere if they exile, you know, like 2 Lords or something. We can bounce it on the end step, and suddenly we have a huge attack. We can also save our creatures against Terminus or Supreme Verdict. But I left them in the sideboard for game 2. So I took out, it looks like 10 cards, brought in 4 Deprives, 4 Relics. Might be too much for this matchup, but that's what I did for this game. And then what else? I'm trying to remember my sideboard here. Oh, the 2 Kiras, obviously. So 4 Deprives, 4 Relics, 2 Kiras. Okay. Opponent plays a second land. All right, they have the turn to search for Azcanta. Deprive is excellent, really excellent, but we don't currently have mana for that. Going to go for Silvergill here because we need another land. It is, so things looking up for us this game. Opponent chose to keep whatever card it was that they saw with search. They opted and went to the bottom. All right, things continuing to develop nicely. Now this is sort of a crucial turn here. We We'd really like another land to get these Master of Waves down. The island actually lets us hold up Deprive, so we could leave that up and counter a Jace next turn or something. I think, okay, so the opponent has 2 lands here. I think that blue-white takes out some of their counter magic against Merfolk, especially since we have Cavern of Souls, AEther Vial. I shouldn't be too afraid of 2 mana. If they brought in Spell Snare, it doesn't matter against Kira. I think slamming Kira is the best play here. But I ended up going with Silvergill Adept after attacking, just to get another card in hand, get closer to that 4th land, so we can open up like 2 spells a turn. Hopefully, just get some creatures on the board, make it hard for the opponent to answer us effectively with spot removal. And they can't counter Silvergill, so there's that. And AEther Vial is excellent there because I can play the land and play out AEther Vial. Opponent does not counter it. Makes me think they probably don't have the counter, which makes me think I probably should have played Kira. But again, I've actually written kind of a guide on how to play against blue-white on Reddit, and one of the points was keeping Kira in hand until the very late game, because if the opponent gets very low on cards and you resolve Kira, then it's going to take 2 spells for them to be able to deal with her, and she can chip in for whatever damage hasn't been dealt yet. So let's get some Merfolk onto the board, save Kira for a bit later. Seems like a decent strategy. Of course, the weakness of playing multiples against this matchup is that the opponent does play Detention Sphere. They play their 4th land, but really a Wrath wouldn't be bad against Silvergills because we've drawn cards off of them, so I don't really care about the Wrath too much. So they do play the Detention Sphere. I don't have my Echoing Truth. I have 0 answers to that card. So it's basically like a Wrath. And it's amazing because they have 1 or 2 copies of Detention Sphere in their deck if it's sort of stock blue-white. And anytime I play out a double of a creature, Detention Sphere is always the next play, so opponent just gets rid of our board, which is going to slow us down a ton. Alright, so with 1 mana up here, seems like maybe Kira is the way to go now. Definitely the most value I can get out of my current board state. Okay. Baneslayer Angel. Trickster is going to be good against that. It's going to make Wraths worse for the opponent because it will get rid of their crazy bomb. I'm going to take AEther Vial up to 2 here. That land is great. We can jam that. And I think it's time to go for Master of Waves because if we can dodge a Wrath for 1 more turn, we should be able to get through this because we've got AEther Vial up to tap down the Baneslayer Angel. They don't have enough mana for Terminus. They do have Supreme Verdict, but again, why would they play out their bomb if they're just going to wipe the board? The opponent topped. They put in the graveyard the card that they saw on the top, so things looking good for us. But the next card underneath that was a Terminus. So how lucky is that? Okay, so they blind flip a Terminus. Now I guess it's his call. And I have to assume that, he thinks that we're in a better spot right here than he is. So this is a massive turning point in this game because, we were on the cusp of developing sort of an unbeatable board. If they had Cryptic Command, we had a counter up for that next game. Next turn. We'd have Island Walk. We have a whole bunch of, I don't know. It's just, we were getting close, and yeah, it's frustrating because it's totally random. And here's a Jace. So the opponent is down to 2 cards. We've got 5, but they get to Brainstorm, and they've got a shuffle effect with Ghost Quarter. They can Ghost Quarter one of their own lands if they really want to shuffle things away. Play a land, and yeah, let's bring in. I chose to bring in Trickster here. It didn't seem like it was going to be relevant anymore. The opponent immediately paths him. Probably pretty smart because I was going to untap, attack Jace, and probably counter their path. just to make sure that I get rid of Jace. But opponent pretty savvy. I checked after this round, and I think he currently has 6 undefeated trophies, so definitely knows what he's doing. Okay, another land means I think I'm gonna Vial in a Lord here and go Master of Waves, reestablish a huge board, and get Deprive up. Now, of course, the opponent can bounce Master of Waves. They chose to keep whatever it was that they saw, I think, with Azcanta. Brainstorming again, choosing to leave the Master of Waves where he is. So maybe I can counter something if the opponent goes for it. So he ousts my Lord. I let it resolve because I want... I mean, if they... Oust could target Master of Waves. So why wouldn't they target it with Oust? Because they probably have a follow-up, right? So they're trying to path the Master here. I'm going to try to counter it. Okay, that resolves. And Snapcaster Path. So the opponent has one of the most insane hands I've ever seen from blue-white. They blind flipped Terminus a turn before they probably would have lost. Oust, Path to Exile, Snap Path. Just absolutely perfect answers. They had the Detention Sphere from my multiple Silvergill Adepts. I'm not salty. I'm just pointing out how unlikely this is. They're now on 0 cards. Now, I needed a Merfolk there. Play out the AEther Vial. Okay, so they bin the Opt and search for Azcanta. Flips. Opponent's going to Brainstorm again. They play a Fetch, which means they can shuffle away any garbage on top of their deck. So things just coming up roses for the opponent. Gonna bring in the Lord. Sure, they have another path in hand. Why wouldn't they? Not salty at all. Another Lord. So I'm gonna attack. Hope they activate the Celestial Colonnade to waste some mana. And so now I'm gonna bring in the Lord. Hope I can get rid of Jace since they chose not to block. Cracking the Fetch, shuffling away whatever was ever on top of their deck. And Cryptic Command. Bouncing. Bouncing a Lord. All right, so that means that Jace got hit for 0, and I'm just gonna play out the Lord again. Right? We need some sort of attacks. Now the opponent's going to activate Azcanta, and it's another Terminus. Okay, brainstorming again. Field of Ruin. Terminus. Relic, play it, crack it, through a Lord. Opponent's gonna start. Oh, it's Teferi. Are there lands in the opponent's deck that they can play? All right. So ticking Teferi up, they're gonna start drawing cards off Azcanta, starting to draw cards off Teferi. Very, very, very difficult to win from this spot. I drew another creature, but we really can't fight through this. Let's see what they... A third Terminus. It's so funny. So now we could put Reejerey in right now, but then the opponent will cast Terminus on their next turn. Which... Alright, so I'm just going to click through this real fast. Now, that was a noob mistake, I think, for an experienced player to make, and I'll explain why in a moment. Opponent, okay, so Timely Reinforcements, they're just drawing every single possible good card in their deck. They're up to 5 cards in hand. AEther Vial is dead. I draw another land and I scoop. Now, why is it stupid for the opponent to play out Stony Silence? Well, I hadn't seen this all game. Maybe I think they're not playing Stony Silence. But since I'm seeing it, it gives me extra motivation to bring in Echoing Truth. Of course, Echoing Truth can hit Detention Sphere and their Planeswalkers and their Soldier tokens. It can hit Baneslayer Angel, but really important also is Stony Silence because I've got relics and I've got vials that I really want to be able to activate. So definitely going to bring in Echoing Truth for game 3. I'm going to close this window and then I'll show you guys how I changed my sideboard. All right, so back for game 3. Let me show you guys the sideboard going into game 3 and how it changed. So I chose to leave 2 relics in the board. Again, sort of a hedge against Stony Silence, but I brought in 2 Echoing Truths, another hedge against Stony Silence. That card can do a lot of work against us, and I wanted to give myself a chance, to sort of fight through it, since AEther Vial can be really important in the matchup. Well, there's 2 of those AEther Vials, but there's no lands, so I'm gonna mulligan. Opponent kept 7. This is quite a lovely 6, so I'm gonna keep that. That is going to go to the bottom. And we get to open Island AEther Vial. All right, opponent Flooded Strand, go. Take the AEther Vial up. What are we going to draw for the turn? So there's another artifact. Seems like the obvious play is to get Relic down and leave up mana to crack it. However, I do have a Deprive in hand, and we did see the opponent play a Stony Silence at the end of last game. We have this AEther Vial down on the table. It's a really juicy target. Opponent probably wants to slam Stony Silence. Let's give ourselves a chance to fight through it. If they don't cast something that we need to counter, we can, of course, just cast Merfolk Trickster and get a body down. Field of Ruin. Stony Silence. Deprive. And that is high-level Modern play right there. I have to say it. Maybe it's immodest or something, but I know what the threats are to my deck. I know when I need to play around them. I chose not to play a really good card in order to give myself a chance to fight through a card that would just lose me the game. So I think that went very, very well for us. It does set us back a land drop early in the game. You typically want to use Deprive a little bit later, but we do have AEther Vial helping us out here. Another island is great. So I think here we are going to play this Relic. Start chipping away at the opponent's graveyard. Also note that I do have an island-heavy hand here. The opponent played out a Field of Ruin as their second land. A good sign for us means that they might actually be a little bit stuck on mana. So the opponent's going to opt here, and let's see what they do with their card. So they kept it on top, but there's a second Field of Ruin. So either they kept that Field of Ruin on top because they wanted it, or they kept another card on top and already had the Field of Ruin in hand. So I'm just going to flash in the Trickster here. Now this hand is obviously not very explosive. It needs to develop, but it looks like we might have some time given the opponent's mana difficulties. If we draw something like a Cavern, we're definitely going to keep it in hand. So I'm going to not crack the Relic yet, right? Because we can still get value off of it. So that was a really, really brilliant top deck there because the opponent, first of all, can't counter it if I hardcast it. And then if they try to deal with him on my turn, I can vial in a Phantasmal Image. So let's go ahead and continue chipping away at the opponent's graveyard. Play our third island. Opponent has to be upset that I have no non-basics for him to hit. Get in for 3, take him down to 16. I've left up mana to crack the Relic if need be. So the opponent, I'm starting to think now that they may have topped Stony Silence with their opt, which seems poor to me. It's possible, they thought I might not, on my mulligan, have access to a third land. Thus, if I play a 2-drop, I might not be able to crack Relic, but as it stands, they're trying to slam Stony Silence. It's possible it's the only card in their hand that they can play. It's also possible it might just be the highest value card that they can try to play. Maybe they just have another thing like an opt. So I get to respond to this, and they have no colored mana up at this point. So I'm going to bring in Phantasmal Image, and then obviously copy the Lord and crack the Relic. So what is the opponent achieving by slamming Stony Silence there? Not a whole lot. I've got 3 lands out already. I'm down to 1 card in hand. And note that off of the Relic, I drew another Island Walk Lord. So things shaping up really, really well over on my side of the table. We can see that the opponent kept what could be described as a greedy hand, having only 1 source of colored mana in their hand. And and 1 or 2 Field of Ruins, getting really punished by our basic land draw. All right, so once again, and really a really excellent draw here. That's why we play 4 of these in the sideboard. Even if I play the Lord out, it's only 13. It's still a 2-turn clock. Much better just to keep this in hand and have a counter up for whatever the opponent can play next turn. Really, the only thing that they can do here, I think, is top deck Terminus, because any spot removal will only deal with 1 of my creatures. I guess they could play Detention Sphere, in which case I would just counter it. They could play Detention Sphere targeting this guy, but then it would counter the Detention Sphere anyway, so they would target this guy, I would counter it, swing back, win with Overkill. The opponent just scooped it up. So I thought that was a fascinating little game. It really only took a couple minutes, but the opponent had shown me Stony Silence at the end of game 2 when he absolutely didn't have to. That game was super over, and not only that, but he played Timely Reinforcements, which gave me extra motivation to bring in Echoing Truth. So I was prepared for Stony Silence. I had the AEther Vial hand. I had a Relic that I drew into, left mana up, and got paid off, countering their Stony Silence, and then drew the cards that we have the most of in the deck, the Island Walk Lords. And Phantasmal Image helped out again, as it did against Tron in round 1. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Please let me know your thoughts on the match. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please check out my Patreon page. I really appreciate all of the support you patrons give me. It takes a bit of time and effort to make these videos, and so getting a little bit of support from you guys really goes a long way. So tune in for the next video where I'll be back with round 3, and I'll see you there. Thanks again. Bye.